Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Maudley Gothic. If you're new here, what I like to do is a variety of artsy things with often a little bit of a spooky or dark twist. And today, I'm revisiting a topic that is not very popular on my channel, but I love it a lot, as can be seen by my latest finished crochet project, is crochet. It's something I've known how to do. I learned how to knit when I was in elementary school. I picked up crochet at some point over the pandemic just because I could, and I started crocheting little dinosaurs. And lately it's kind of expanded into everything and everything. So everything and anything. But so today I am going to walk you through, originally this was all gonna be one video, and then I realized how long it was getting. So we're gonna split it up into two, but I'm gonna make myself another cardigan. This is gonna be the third jacket that I've made myself, but this one's gonna be a little bit different because I'm not following a pattern. This one I found a pattern for. I'm kind of creating my own. So I've had this beautiful idea, I think I saw some inspiration on Instagram, of basically a patchwork jacket, but it's not gonna be out of granny squares. I wanna try to do it out of the individual motifs. So basically I've got a bunch of these little motifs. There are 5 technically. There's gonna be 2 roses, a skull, and then some different kinds of leaves. So this video is going to contain the pattern for the small roses, the skulls, and the leaves, because the larger roses, which are out of this beautiful blue yarn, this is Heartland yarn from Lion brand in the color Glacier Bay, which is sold out online, but luckily Michael still had 2 skeins when I went. This follows a pattern that is linked below exactly. It's the flat lacy rose tutorial from lacycrochet.blogspot. I don't know. It's linked below as far as the exact pattern for this one. But since I walk through the modified version, they've been all crumpled in a bag, which is why they don't look very nice. But because I walked through the modified pattern for this one, I decided not to extend the length of this video by any longer and add the pattern for this one. So it's the same process for this one, just following the exact instructions in that pattern linked down below. So the next part of this is going to be my entire process and theming as far as piecing all of this together, because I can get them, pretty close, and it's going to be a really interesting patchwork design. I'm really, really excited. Here's a skull. There's one of what the skulls look like, and then here is one of the leaves. It's, got these little 2. So I've kind of mapped this out a little bit. I've still got a lot of pieces of these left to make, but I'm really excited, and I'm really excited for this project. It's kind of completely different. It's really, really fun. It'll be something that's completely unique, and mine, I thought these 4 colors complemented each other really well. Got this gorgeous blue, this tan. This is a really pretty color. You'll see up close in a bit, and then this nice off-white. So I think they all tie together really nicely. It's gonna be this really kind of creative patchwork thing. I'm looking forward to it. I'm very, very excited. Thank you so much for tuning in. I know the crochet videos aren't as popular, but I really do enjoy them because I get to turn the stuff that I'm doing in the background anyways into more content. I've got a lot of ideas down the line. The crown is not being neglected. I promise the crown is being worked on. That should be my next video. But I've got a lot of other ideas here, there, and in between. So stay tuned. I just gotta get some supplies. So without further ado, thank you so much for getting to this point in the video. If you want to see more crafty rambles and shenanigans, feel free to subscribe, stick around. This is a wonderful little artsy corner of the internet. All of you are welcome. Thank you very much for stopping by. And without further ado, let's get to the project. So this pattern is for the skull portion. Now it is based on a pattern that I found. I will put the link to basically the base of any of these patterns that I've used in the description along with my own patterns. However, this is the test granny square I did whenever I made my friend that skull scarf that can be seen in the Everything I Made for Christmas video, which is kind of a random one for my channel, but it's a really simple skull design. However, this is too small, in my opinion, to be a repeatable motif for the sweater I have in mind. So I supersized it. I really like this off-white yarn. This yarn is, let's go up just a little bit. This yarn is a Karen Blossom Cake yarn in the color Yacht Club, apparently. I am using the correct hook size for it, which is a 5mm crochet hook, which I have right here. I really like this yarn because if you'll notice, it's not fully white, it's not fully off-white, it's got these more gray sections, it's got these more, you know, cream colored sections, and kind of gave a more authentic bone feel in my opinion. So that's why I went for this yarn as my yarn of choice. It kind of plays into the brown, which is one of the other main tones of the sweater. So without further ado, I will walk you through how I made the skull. First thing we're going to do is make a magic loop. It's a method of crocheting in the rounds that lets you get a really nice tight center point, and so it's really hard to see. So what you're going to do is I have my tail here and this other side is my working yarn. So I am going to hold the tail in my hand and I'm going to wrap the working yarn around my fingers in a nice X pattern. You're going to take your hook and you're going to go under that bottom one, hook the top piece, flip it up, and then you want to yarn over using that diagonal again and pull through. So what you have now is this is your working yarn. You can see the tail right there. It's really easy. That's a trick that I learned. So one more time, we're going to hold the tail, going to wrap the yarn around my fingers. You can use as many fingers as you'd like. It depends on how much you're comfortable with and what you can hold. I like to put it here because it gives me a really easy gap to insert my hook. So you want to go and you want to grab this cross. This is the piece of yarn we were grabbing both times. So we're going to grab and hook under. And then one more time, we're going to grab and pull through nice and easy. There we go. So that's our magic loop. And so what we're going to do, if I can grab my yarn, is we're going to single crochet 7 into this loop. So I'm holding it like this, so I've got both my tail and the loop here. And to crochet into the loop, you just go under, yarn over, through. So there's 1. So now what makes it a magic loop, if you are wondering, is we're going to pull the tail tight. You want to kind of make sure your crochet is all nice in the line. You're going to pull it nice and tight. Do be careful depending on the kind of yarn you're using. I've actually had the tail snap off at this point, which is not super helpful. So now what we're going to do is we want to slip to join. So we're going to look to find that first kind of chevron that you can see, and you want to go under both of those loops. This can be a little bit tricky, especially if you did it super, super tight, but so just have some patience. I got both loops on my hook there, so I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to yarn over and pull through those, and then also pull through the loop on my hook. So now I have my nice little circle. Let's get a little closer for you. All right, so from this point, what we're going to do is we're going to chain 2. We're going to go 1, 2, and the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to double crochet in that same stitch where I just pulled my slip stitch through, and into the next 3 stitches I'm going to double crochet 2 in each stitch. These can be a little bit difficult if you keep a tight tension like I tend to do. So, and we are going to do 1 double crochet into the next stitch. And so what we are doing, the way the skull builds, is we've done this top semicircle, and so now we actually have to create the cavities for those eye sockets. So how we're going to do that, because I'm supersizing it from that base pattern, is we're going to chain 8. So just from here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now that I have 8, I'm going to yarn over and I'm going to double crochet into the next stitch. So that's my first connection point. This is an eye socket. I'm working upside down right now. And then I'm going to change, and then I'm going to chain 5 to make the nose cavity. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yarn over and double crochet into the next stitch. And this pattern, although modified, I came up with these numbers just kind of on my own. So if you don't like the size or dimensions of the eye cavities and the nose socket, you can kind of mess around with that part of the pattern without changing too much if you want it to look just a little bit different. but this is the size that I thought I could reasonably get it without modifying too much as far as how it started. So we have our nose cavity done, so now we're going to chain 8 one more time for the other eyes. So with that, one more time, we're going to yarn over and double crochet into the next. Blech. All right. So now that we're here, our rows are a little broken, so we're gonna go right into that stitch right there and slip stitch to join. So now we have a funky, weird looking little dude. So next row, we are going to chain 2, and we are going to double crochet in each stitch along the top row until we get to the chain space. So, and I am doing one into the same space that I just slip stitched into. It'll just make a nicer seam. Okay, so there's my last double crochet before the chain space. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 9 single crochets into this chain space. So by that, we're going to go through the chain space, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through. So 1. All right, so now into the nose space, you're going to do a slip stitch. So you're going to go into the nose space, pull a loop through, and pull it through the loop on your hook. From here, you're going to chain 2, and into the nose space, you're going to double crochet 4. And to get back down to the other eye socket, we're going to chain 2, and then into the nose space, again, we're going to do a slip stitch, and from here, you're going to work 9 single crochets into the other eye socket. All right, we're almost back around. The very last thing you're gonna do is a double crochet into that last stitch right there. And you're going to do a slip stitch to join the row. So, when I was first making this pattern, I thought that that looked pretty good, but it was just a little skimpy, and if you'll notice, this one just feels like he's got a little bit more structure to him. So how do we do that? We got one more row. So from here, we're actually only going to chain 1. We're going to do 1 single crochet in that very first stitch. We're going to do 2 single crochets into the next stitch. Three single crochets across the top. 2 single crochets into the next stitch. These 2 sets of 2 single crochets is just to kind of help keep that rounded and make it a little flatter than if you did single crochets all the way across. And speaking of, we are now basically going to do single crochets for the next 9, 10, 11, 12, I think, stitches until we get to the nose space. I'll put the actual number on screen. And so your last stitch for these single crochets is going to be this one right here, right before the nose space. So we're going to single crochet. So what's next is you see that gap from the chain space right there? Those are 4 double crochets, and there's the chain. You're going to stick your hook into that, pull up a loop, slip stitch. You're going to chain 2, and we're going to do 4 more double crochets into those stitches. And I want to point out again, your first double crochet should go right here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So once you do that, we're going to chain 2, and then into this chain space on this side, which is right there, you're going to do another slip stitch. So just like the other side from here, what we're going to do is we're going to single crochet around until we get to right here. So that is one, and I like to start in this stitch right here directly from next to the nose space. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's about 10 or 11. Again, I will put the number on screen. So that was 11, I think, and so we are going to slip stitch to join, and then you can end. So that right there is a skull. I like it. I think it gives it a little bit bigger, meaner teeth. You can probably do some more increases or something if you want it to truly lay a little bit more flat, or also blocking. None of these have been blocked yet. They're just kind of exist. I like this size a good bit. This is the second smallest motif that I have that I'm going to be using to build the jacket, but I still think it's big enough that, and they're each unique enough with the color differences that I can stack them or mess with them and get a lot more versatility out of them because I think they're pretty interesting. So there's the skull. So up next is the leaves. And so this is a really interesting color of yarn. It's a very bluish gray with some brown notes in it. And I decided to do two types of leaves. So I've got this standard kind of leaf shape. And again, none of these are blocked or anything, so they're all just kind of puffy. This one is the second kind of leaf because I wanted to be able to play with it a little bit more and create some more dimension because these fill two different kinds of spaces. The type of yarn that I am using for the leaves is from Lion's brand. It is this Respect recycled polyester blend in the color Wood Smoke. There were several colors of this yarn that were just stunning. And this yarn is a really soft texture, honestly. I actually really like this yarn. It's kind of fun to work with too. So it's this gorgeous kind of blue-brown texture because I wanted something that kind of pulled in the blue tones since there weren't that many blue tones, incorporated the brown tones, and just kind of be the neutral base to tie all of the other components together since those colors are so drastically different. And I think this was a absolutely fantastic choice. So surprisingly, both leaf patterns start the exact same way. This part of this leaf is the exact same as this. So I'm going to show you how to do this first, and then show you how to add that if you want to do the fancy leaf. I'm calling this the fancy leaf. So, simple leaf though to start. So, this is going to start first with a slip knot, which I have a very quick way that I tend to make them. I hold my working yarn in one hand, so tail is in my right hand, my working yarn is in my left. I wrap my fingers, the yarn around my fingers, and I loop through and I grab the working yarn in between my two fingers and I just pull it through. But any old slip knot will do. I like this one because it's the working yarn end that is the end that cinches to the hook. How we're going to start our leaf is we're going to start by chaining 10. I would recommend a slightly loose-ish tension for this. I wouldn't make it super tight. And I am also using the 5mm crochet hook for this. I actually use it for all yarn in this project. This yarn does say to use a smaller hook, but again, it's for smaller pieces and you can kind of do these a little looser, so it's fine. So we want 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, perfect. In the second chain from the hook, so the one on the hook does not count, so 1, 2, we're going to do a single crochet. And essentially, in each space down the chain, we are going to increase by a stitch size. So our next stitch is going to be a half double crochet. So you yarn over, go through the stitch, pull up a loop. So I have 3, and I'm going to pull through all loops at once. My next stitch is going to be a double crochet, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. My next stitch is going to be a treble, so I'm going to yarn over 2 to start, going to insert my hook and pull up a loop with 4 loops on my hook, and I'm going to pull through 2, 1, 2, 3 times. The next one is going to be a double treble. So I'm going to yarn over 3 times to start, so I will have 4 loops on my hook. Going to insert into the stitch, and you're going to yarn over and pull through 2, 1, 2, 3, 4 times. And now we're going back down. So my next stitch will be a treble. So yarn over twice, pull up a loop, 1, 2, 3. My next stitch will be a double, so yarn over, pull through, 1, 2. My next stitch will be a half double, yarn over, pull up a loop, pull through all 3 loops at once, and then my very last one here will be a single crochet. So that is one side, and the other side of the leaf mimics this exactly. If you see, we get our nice bars, we get our vertical texture. So what we're going to do to turn is we are just going to chain 1 and turn, and so now we're working into the other side of the chain. As before, we're going to start with a with a single crochet. And did I single, half, double? Nope. Okay, and then here we are going to do a single crochet, and then to end, normally, when actually I'm going to do it regardless, I'm just going to go into this loop. You can kind of end wherever you would like, but we are going to go through the first stitch of the other side, and we're going to do a slip knot. So, a slip stitch. If you only wanted to do the basic leaf, this is the basic leaf. And, you know, I'm just going to use these to kind of connect pieces, so it's nice and simple and small. If you would like to do the fancy leaf, you're still going to get all the way up to the point of doing that slip stitch there. But from here, what you're going to do is you are going to single crochet into that same stitch we just did a slip stitch into. We're going to do a half double crochet into that very same stitch. Now into the next stitch we are going to do 2 double crochet. Now into the next stitch right here we're going to do a treble crochet. So notice again we're increasing in size, except this is where it gets a little weird because I need to be able to separate and make my little leaf point. So what we're going to do from this point is you are going to do 2 treble crochets into this loop right here. So kind of this front leg of your previous treble crochet right there, that's where you're going to do your next 2 treble crochets. So going right there. We're going to do 1, 2, 3, and then 1 more into that same space. We're going to do 1, 2, 3. And then to finish it off, you see how we've now got like a nice little point? We're going to do a double treble into that same space to try to finish off that point of our leaf. Now the only reason I don't like using these super tall stitches is they do have some gaps in them, so it's not the best, but if you can see, we've got like a nice little big leaf and small leaf kind of thing going on. And so here you can just essentially chain 1, snip, and pull through, and we're done. So, you know, you're going to want to try to block these to lay these flat. And I don't know, there's a lot you could do just working off of this base leaf. If you wanted, you could probably chain 1 and then kind of come back down the other side or something to give it more of like that other leaf shape. But I don't mind that it's a bit of a smaller, weirder shape because it fits in all those awkward gaps that I was actually having between some of the pieces. So there is how to make the basic leaf and the fancy leaf. So what we're doing now is one of the 2 flowers that is making up the majority of the sweater. So this is the second largest motif in the sweater, and this is a flat rose pattern. You'd be surprised how few of the flat patterns, at least I was able to find. This is a slightly modified pattern from one I found at lacycrochet.blogspot.com. I will have it linked in the description down below. And this is only slightly modified, and it's really because I wanted it slightly smaller. This yarn is thicker than what the blog recommends to use, so it ended up bigger than I needed, quicker than I needed, so I decided to modify it to make it just a little bit smaller so it would kind of fit the perspective of what I want. Now, unfortunately, I have no idea what this yarn really is. It is one of the random ones I got from Unclaimed Baggage. I apologize for how gross this skein looks right now. But it is a very simple, it does not necessarily feel like a full cotton yarn. This feels like a acrylic yarn, or, you know, a synthetic yarn, probably something you can find relatively cheaply from potentially Walmart. I may look around to see if I can find any comparisons. I still use a 5mm hook for this entire project. This yarn, however, probably is going to say something closer to a 6mm hook because it's a little hard to work with a 5mm. It's just a bit too small for it. It ended up working out, but unfortunately, I don't know what this yarn is, but it's a thick, beige, cheap feeling yarn. It's unfortunately not the softest yarn in the world, but it does mean it has slightly more structure than some of the other things that I'm working with, so maybe it's not the worst thing in the world. So, let's get into our rows. And first things first, we are going to again start with a slip knot. So, gonna make ourselves a happy little slip knot, and we want to crochet at least, we want to chain at least 80. Now, as you can see, there's still some chain left over from this flower, so it is gonna kind of depend flower to flower. If you get really good at making a bunch of these and you can get your chain perfect, go for it. I have made like 12 of these and still can't get the chain perfect, so I chain extra because I find it to help out. Otherwise, you're kind of fighting for your life with the flower, and that's not worth it. So let's chain 80. All right, go ahead and pause and chain if, you know, it took you a minute. It took me a second, especially trying to make sure that I actually had at least close to 80. Again, I would recommend starting with more than you think you need just because it's a little hard to adjust if you didn't do enough. So what we are going to do is we are going to slip stitch into the 6th stitch from the hook. So the one on the hook does not count. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I lied. We're going to slip stitch into the 7th. Sorry, forgot there for a second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Can I count? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right. Woo. So you're going to do a slip stitch here. So what you should end up with is a weird little loop and a long tail. That's fine. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to turn because we want to be crocheting into this loop. So we're going to chain 1 and turn, and we are going to double crochet 15 into this ring. I know it sounds like a lot. I promise you it'll work out. So yarn over into the center of the loop and go. So once you have your 15 double crochet, there is one more stitch you need to do, and that is a half double crochet to finish it off. So you're going to do a half double crochet as our last stitch into the ring, and this should be nice and dense. So now we're actually going to be working around this chain for everything else. So how we're going to start is we're going to do a half double crochet around the chain to start. And our first petal is going to be 13 double crochets. Okay, so once you have 13, all of our petals are going to be finished with an additional half double crochet on top of whatever the count of double crochets is. So we're going to finish it with a half double crochet. Now, to attach our petal, we're going to be going into the 6th double crochet or 6th stitch of this first chain. So what we're going to do is count. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if you think that's a little bit too far, well, you can always stretch it out, or if we want to count this one, which I think I did when I wrote this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because that is going to sit just a touch nicer. And so what I would always recommend whenever you're doing this slip stitch is make sure that you're not going with the chain on the outside. Do this over the chain. You want to make sure that the chain kind of stays with all of this. So pull through and pull through. And so now your first petal is slip stitched into space. And so this is really, really straightforward. The only thing that changes is the number of double crochets around the chain and where it goes into each next stitch. So to start petal 2, what we're going to do is we've done our slip stitch, and so we're going to chain 1 just to kind of secure that in place, and notice we are still doing it around that chain. And so the very first thing of petal 2 is going to be a half double crochet, and we are going to do 15 double crochets around this chain for petal 2. And of course you're going to finish it with a half double crochet, but meet me back when you've got 15 double crochets. So there's my 15 double crochets. Before I squish it down, I'm going to do my half double crochet, and we're going to do a squish. I find it kind of fun and satisfying to squish them. It's really nice. So we are going to do our slip stitch for this one 7 away from where we did our last one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So into that stitch right there. Remember, we're going around our chain, and we're going to slip stitch and chain 1 to secure. And so the great thing, especially as you do the chain through it, is if you think that this petal is too far away, you can actually just kind of pull it closer and just shift those pieces around. I made these really dense because I kind of like the more dense look for these. And because of this kind of repeating pattern, you can kind of decide when to stop. I also think they look good with just 3 petals, but I chose to do 6 for my smaller ones, and the full-size ones actually follow the pattern exactly. However, so for our third petal, we're going to be doing 16 double crochets, but first we gotta start with that half double crochet. Start with that, and we're going to do 16 double crochets onto this chain. So meet me back when you've got 16 double crochets. So there are our 16 double crochets. Ooh, this thing gets a little twisted around. You want to make sure you keep it as flat as possible. And we're going to finish with our half double crochet. Boink. And this petal is going to go into the 6th stitch of the first petal, which is this guy right here, not the center loop. We're talking about this one. So the first stitch for that, that's the half double crochet. We only want the double crochet, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We want to try to get this guy all the way over here. So we're going to around the chain and slip stitch through both of those and just kind of massage it to get it into place. All right, chain 1, half double crochet, and petal 4 is basically just a repeat of petal 3. It's another 16 double crochet. So meet me back when you've got 16 double crochet. So there is our 16. We're going to do a squish and finish that petal off with a half double crochet, and this petal is going to go into the 2nd stitch of our 2nd petal. Again, this center one doesn't count, so 1, 2. So not counting the half double crochet, we're going 1, 2. So it's going to go right there. Woo. Remember, we want to go around the chain. So we're going to do a slip stitch and chain 1. And I like laying it flat intermittently because it kind of helps me see how I'm building that structure. And I'm going to get some more available yarn here. So for our 5th petal, we are going to again start with a half double crochet, and we're going to do 13 double crochets around this chain. We're getting low on chain, but I promise we should have enough. All right, and so there's number 13. So we're gonna finish it off with that half double crochet. We're gonna do a big old squish, squish that down, and we're going to look for the correct orientation, which is this, And we are going to look to place this one, petal 5, 10 away from where our last one was. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if you can't see what I'm counting these the little bumps on the side. They're the easiest way for me to count the stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this is our target stitch. I'm going to go through both of those right there. Around the chain, we're going to pull through and pull through. Chain 1. And that looks a little bit too puffy, so we're going to pull that just a little bit tighter. Maybe a little bit more elongated. There we go. I like that a lot better. A little bit closer to my flower. And as you can see, hopefully we have enough chain left to do this last petal. So we're going to do a half double crochet. And again, that chain initially is going to kind of depend on your tension, and you can kind of adjust it as you need depending on what you know. This guy may just be a little bit loose than some of my other flowers, so he's not got quite as much chain left. And so for this very last petal, we are going to double crochet 14 around this chain. And there is 14. We're going to do a squinch. And we're going to do a half double crochet to finish it off. And if you're having problems with this pattern, I totally understand. I was as well, because you're just working off a chain. There's no like substance. And so it's like that awkwardness of starting a project, but for the whole thing, which is like not helpful. So totally understand if you're having some difficulties getting this one down. This last petal is going to go into the 6th stitch of this petal right here, the 3rd one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those last two I kind of counted together, but that's fine. And if you have different opinions as far as where you think these slip stitches should be placed, honestly, that part of this pattern is really flexible. You just have to then adjust the number of double crochets you're going to do for each petal to account accordingly. So, but you're just going to chain 1, and then guess what? We're done. What I would actually recommend, which I did not do and have not been doing, which is bad on my part, when you do that last stitch, I would actually go through your chain here as well to secure it to your final petal. That's what I should be doing, because otherwise you can still just kind of like mess and tighten it, and you don't want to do that. So I'm going to tie and secure it off in a better fashion. I'll show that more when I get to the construction of the full jacket, but that right there is another flower. And so you see I've kind of mucked with them and pulled it apart, and you can kind of get them to sit in a bunch of different ways and however you would like. So there is the brown flower for this project.